watch out. If you think your girl's a good looker, take a good look at this guy's dolls.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
The new Bond. The different 007 on Her Majesty's Secret Service. A different Bond. The name's Lazenby. George Lazenby. And he's got it made. A different Bond woman. The name's Rick. Diana Rick. This one's got class and style. Telly Savalas. Gabriel Pizzetti. And 007 times more exciting. If you think you know your Bond, think again. This one's different.
It's true!
Drop everything. Try and make it. Marvelous is the password for the different Bond.
The other fella.
Welcome to the Tailoring Talk Show with me, your host, Roberto Revilla. I'm a bespoke tailor, menswear designer, and founder of Roberto Revilla London Suit and Shirt Makers. This is the podcast where you drop in for the threads, but often leave with something quite unexpected. If you haven't already, please support the show by subscribing and leaving us a rating and a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It's time for part 6 of the Tailoring Talk James Bondathon, where we follow the James Bond film series in order, ticking off each movie as each month goes by. My guests and I will be deep diving into each film, covering everything from our overall review to the clothes, gadgets, cast, behind the scenes stories, and our favourite moments. Step into the Tailoring Talk time machine as we head to 1969, which can only mean we are on Her Majesty's Secret Service. As ever, I'm joined by our resident poker star. If MI6 had put him up against Le Chiffre in Casino Royale, he'd have won back all that dirty money in the first round. It's Philip Rahman. Philip, how are you?
I'm pretty good, Bobby. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, thank you. You're wearing, is that your pink shirt you're wearing today?
It is a pink shirt, but I need to get a new one because this one, I'm not going to say where I got it from, but yeah, I need a new one.
Might know someone who can help you with that. We'll have a talk after. But you're doing well. Good weekend.
Yeah, fantastic. After seeing this film, I'm thinking I might need to add loads more ruffles to it.
Yeah, we are going to be getting into ruffles. Yet again, I am delighted and privileged to be joined by my friend from the Play Pause Turn podcast. The coolest dark saber wielding IT teacher around. You'll only get that if you're into Star Wars. His voice is so sexy you wouldn't realise you were being stabbed to death until it was too late. It's John Evans. John, how are you?
I'm piss glorious right now, thank you very much.
Oh, that's a take on the restaurant at the top
Very
of the
bad,
mountain.
sorry.
And last but not least, it's an extra special treat as we're joined by my client and friend. You met him on episode 39. He would answer a very shouty yes to the question, can you wear a suit 7 days a week? All the way from Newport in Wales, it's Richard Gore. Rich, how are you?
All the better for being here. Thank you very much for having me.
Brilliant. Did you bring any Welsh cakes to shove down the phone line at me?
No, but we have made some peanut butter and chocolate chip cookies, which are quite something.
I'm sure they are, but they just don't interest me as much as Welsh cakes, as you've since found out. Sorry, don't get jealous, John. It's not a sex thing. So, on Her Majesty's Secret Service. So I saw this for the first time in my life yesterday. I had see John's shock again. I had seen the ending. I literally caught the last kind of 5 minutes when the movie must have been showing on ITV or something one bank holiday weekend, and I basically just watched the last bit and it spoiled the entire movie for me. So yeah, it was interesting. Phil, how about you?
Yeah, I saw it for the first time on Sunday myself, pretty much when you texted me to say that this podcast was happening today. And yeah, no, I mean, for me, it was a little bit different from the other films that I've seen. I guess we'll get into that a little bit later. But I mean, the opening titles reminded me of watching Batman with Adam West, with the fight sequences. So that was a bit entertaining. It was something to look forward to on a Sunday night. So yeah.
John? Well, this wasn't your first time.
No, I've seen this before. So I had the awful sort of realization throughout the whole film about the ending, and actually watching it made it feel a lot worse, because Diane Rigg is the sexiest Bond girl ever, without question. Don't argue with me. Yeah. It's true.
I'm not
arguing.
No arguments.
I actually was struck by the quality of the cinematography in this film more than anything else. Just the colours, the saturation was brilliant. They've obviously got better cameras this time round in 1969. I wonder if some of that technology trickled down from the space program. Who knows? And the other first impression I got was new theme. There's a little bit of a plinky plonky synthesizer in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess a lot of things were changed with George coming along onto the scene. But we'll talk more about that later on, I guess.
Rich, hello.
Yeah, I am.
This is your favourite Bond movie ever. So how many times have you seen it?
I've lost count.
Many.
I know it well. It's one of 3 that I would pick to watch. If somebody said just pick a Bond film, this would be up there, and there's only about another 2 that I'd have in there as well. But
out of interest, what would be the other 2?
Skyfall, for sure, because it's amazing, and From Russia with Love, which is the best book.
Many people hail On Her Majesty's Secret Service as being the best book. I actually have only read Casino Royale, so I don't know about any of the others. Rich is disappointed again. Hey, I started this thing. I didn't say I was like the biggest Bond fan in the world. I'm a massive Bond fan. That doesn't mean that I've, The thing is, when we were children, because we're all roughly the same age, there were films, Rich, so I didn't need to bother reading books. That's why I never read Lord of the Rings. I read The Hobbit, and then my teacher said, yes, I'm going to. My teacher said, you'll love The Lord of the Rings, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, I'll read that then. And she gave it to me, and I looked at it, and I was like, this is going to take a long time. And she's like, well, it's a long book. And I said, okay, I reckon they're going to make I was about 7 at the time. I reckon they're going to make a film of this one day. And lo and behold, 20 years later, that's exactly what Peter Jackson did. So it's fine.
The film is a great... I know we're diverging slightly, but the film of Lord of the Rings is a great adaptation of the book because they skip all the boring bits. And Lord of the Rings is my dad's favourite book of all time. And even he says, yeah, I skipped that bit. Yeah, and that bit. that bit's boring. It doesn't add anything to the story. So yeah, I agree. Lord of the Rings is far too long as a book. But the James Bond books, I've read I think up to Live and Let Die.
Yeah, I mean, apparently Fleming's, apparently, I've read one of his books, his style of writing is quite pacey, so you can kind of sort of zip through them. And Sebastian Faulks, who sort of took up the mantle in the 80s or whatever, he kind of adapted a sort of similar-ish writing style. So
Yeah, they were airport novels. They were holiday novels.
not quite Reader's Digest.
No, but
Yeah,
light, easy to pick up and enjoyable, and then you can forget about them.
Do you remember reading the Willard Price adventures books, like Jungle Adventure and Desert Adventure?
No,
They were airport books, but they were a tier below Bond, I think.
Yeah, I tended to... I think the book series that I was the most into was the Hardy Boys when I was a kid. And then Nancy Drew, which I know was meant to be Hardy Boys for girls, but so what? And obviously any Star Wars novels and comics that I could get my hands on. Like absolutely anything. And the Thrawn trilogy, the original one, I read that so many times.
It's the best Star Wars novel ever written, those trilogy, of any of the Star Wars books.
Exactly. But yeah, again, we are starting to pierce the fabric of time and space and try to get into our other podcast. So I'm going to bring it back to Bond again. So yes, for everybody listening, this spoiler warning is too late, but as always, we are going to be spoiling the living daylights out of this film. So if you haven't seen it yet, yeah, sorry, we've already just sort of let all the air out of your tyres, or whatever the expression is. But yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, stop this now and go watch it and then come back and join us again. I kind of went into this with mixed feelings because I hadn't really paid any attention to George Lazenby as Bond. I obviously hadn't seen the film before, and I was kind of, I guess, influenced by things that I'd heard. But I'd heard such contrasting stuff because people either absolutely love this film and they think it is, if not the best, absolutely one of the best. It's been ranked top 8, top 3, even best of all time in so many fan votes. But then there are other people who absolutely hate this film. They say that Lazenby can't act, etc., etc. So I was trying my best to go into it open-minded, but it was really hard for me not to kind of, sort of go into it with some of all that going on in my head. The one thing I will say about On Her Majesty's Secret Service is that the theme is one of my favourite Bond themes of all time. I think it's among the best work that John Barry's ever done in cinema. It really evokes all of the emotion that you feel as a red-hot-blooded male who wants to be Bond. It's just superb. And I remember the Propeller Heads about 20 years ago, I think it was. They did a wonderful 8-minute long version of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and I used to play that in my Ford Fiesta XR2 or whatever it was constantly on the way to and from work, trying to get as much as I could out of that little 1.4 injection engine. But no, absolutely phenomenal. So I want to change the format up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is, because we've got a new Bond, so, might as well take the opportunity. So I'm just basically going to give a brief 3-part synopsis. I don't want to sort of just follow the film blow by blow like we have been doing. So I want to focus on different aspects of the movie. So plot, casting, gadgets, which won't take long, Bond girls, obviously the soundtrack we're talking about now. So, synopsis. While James Bond is hunting Ernst Stavro Blofeld, head of Spectre, at a beach he saves Tracy from committing suicide by drowning. Afterwards, Bond and Tracy begin a relationship that gives her a reason to live. With the help of Tracy's father, Draco, head of the Unione Corse crime syndicate, Bond tracks down Blofeld to Piz Gloria on a mountaintop in the Alps. Here he finds that Blofeld is brainwashing a group of women to act as his secret agents of biological warfare so he can blackmail world powers. Bond infiltrates Piz Gloria disguised as Sir Hilary Bray of the College of Arms. When his real identity is discovered, Bond escapes and reunites with Tracy, but she's captured by Blofeld after being caught in an avalanche. The world powers refuse to attack Blofeld, so Draco leads the UC's attack on Piz Gloria and rescues Tracy. During the siege, Bond fights Blofeld on a bobsleigh run and believes Blofeld to be dead. Afterwards, Tracy and Bond marry, but Blofeld exacts his revenge when Tracy is killed in a hail of bullets destined for Bond. So, kicking off, what did we think of the overall plot? It took me half the movie to work out what was going on. Philip?
Yeah, I had to make a lot of notes, and I was a little bit confused about Telly Savalas' casting, because when he was introduced as a different name, but he turned out to be Blofeld. And that confused me a little bit. So that took me a while to sort of get my head around it. So all of a sudden, Blofeld's got this extra guise as someone who can perform, hypnosis on a bunch of people to change the world and get what he wants for. So that bit...
Did you miss something, though? Because Telly Savalas, it was no secret he was Blofeld. It was on the movie poster, dude.
No, there was no. When he was introduced to Bond, I'm sure he was actually introduced under a different name.
He was introduced, wasn't he, really? And that's this kind of role of him trying to get this heraldry signed off as Blochon. So Blofeld's a German name, isn't it? And Blochon was obviously a Swiss, or I think it was Swiss, isn't it? Swiss origin.
Yeah.
But I think, see, when I watched it, I paused as Bond is faxing all the documents. I was pausing and reading the documents. You don't get, you don't get the opportunity to do that in a cinema or watching it live because they zoom past so quickly. So all the detail about Blofeld wanted to be Blochon was in those faxes, whilst Bond was reading Playboy.
Yeah.
But
maybe I was overly
that.
concentrating on the Playboy.
Really?
Maybe.
But the film opens with the introduction of Bond, and I think what I didn't get was Tracy. So I got that she was going into the ocean to probably commit suicide, but I couldn't work out if they'd known each other previously, if he'd saved her life before, because then the very next kind of time they meet is at the casino, and he says, I keep making a habit of saving your life. And I was like, well, I've only seen you do it once.
Twice.
So was there something that went on? You only live twice.
Does not giving her 20 grand count as saving her life as well, essentially?
Oh, okay. Well, was the casino going to kill her if she didn't pay off or something? New Bond and all of that. Oh, sorry. Anyway, we were talking about plot, weren't we? John?
I would say that the vein that goes through this film of plot was for me the weakest point, but it didn't detract from my enjoyment of the film as such. Does that make sense? I felt like the whole aspect of meeting Tracy and establishing this relationship with her, which initially starts off as a sort of a arranged marriage, him then disappearing, going off, and I counted shagging at least 2 other women, which I felt was a bit strange if he had feelings for her, and then meeting up with her again. I found that a little bit clunky, but I think it came to fruition towards the end of the film. So I think it was okay. I think the plot hung well together by the end, but it was a bit of a trek to get there, if that makes sense. But maybe you should speak to someone who's watched this film many, many more times than us.
And read the book as well. So, Rich, it's quite interesting hearing what John said there, because this film, the writers decided that the book, the source material, was so good, they didn't want to deviate from it. So they stayed as faithful as they could to the original novel. So out went the gadgets and so on. In came all of the emotional stuff and Bond, getting married and falling in love and so on. But, how did you sorry, this just feels like such a shit. I'm talking to a guy who's seen on Her Majesty's Secret Service probably as many times as I've seen Predator. And I've read the novelisation of that as well. And of Predator 2, by the way.
There can't be a novel for Predator 2. There can't be.
There is.
Oh,
trust me, there is.
Oh, my days.
There is also a fan fiction sequel to Predator 2, which was written by me when I was about 12 years old. So
I've got to read that.
I need to go to my parents' house and dig it out. Rich, over to you.
Yeah, I agree. The plot's not the strongest plot of any film. It's weak. Even now, and I love this film, but I have to accept that the Tracy thing seems to have been shoehorned in. The meeting on the beach is a little strange. I still don't know who the henchmen were that were beating him up.
Were they not Draco's henchmen?
I think they were Draco's men.
They were.
But why were they beating him up after he's just saved her life? I didn't get that bit. But
I have a theory.
Beyond that, I felt it was okay. I kept up. I understood what was going on. And the plots in James Bond films generally aren't the best plots in the world. They are a vehicle to have lots of James Bond in there. And I didn't think that I thought this was better than numerous other Bond films. I knew what was going on and why. I thought it was, in the James Bond world, it wasn't a bad plot. It won't match up with Shawshank or something like that, but it's not meant to. But it helps that I have seen it numerous times, so I've had the chance to fill in the gaps on each time I've watched it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that, obviously the issue for us is that we've just never seen it before. So, you're kind of going in, and I'm sure I'll get something else from it if I decide that I want to see it again. We will come back to that later. Let's talk about casting, because obviously the big thing is that Connery is not back as Bond because he didn't want to do it anymore. And so they went on a big casting spree. I think they looked at over 200 actors. And they actually did look at going to Roger Moore for this, but he just signed on for another season of The Saint, so he then wasn't available. Then they looked at Timothy Dalton, but Timothy Dalton passed because at this time I think he was only 30, maybe?
22.
He was like 22 something.
He was 22.
Was he 22?
He was concerned about being too young in the role.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that makes more sense, because he was born in the mid-40s, I think. So, so only early 20s, so way too young for the role. So he passed it up. And then they landed on a guy that basically, had never acted in a film before and was known in Australia for the Fry's Turkish chocolate ads or something. Why not? But you've got to admire Lazenby because he wanted this part. His agent had turned around to him and said, what role would be perfect for you? And he said, what? And they said, Bond. And he was like, okay, why? Because you're an arrogant twat. So he decided to go for it, but he just couldn't get a foot in the door to get a meeting with the producers. He really worked on his appearance and so on. There's a story that he went to Savile Row, said that he wanted to look like Sean Connery, so he wanted a suit made like Sean Connery. But he needed it at short notice to try and get in on the auditions, etc. And the tailors said to him, I'm not going to be able to make you a suit in that length of time. By the way, anyone listening who, on the business side of things, I'm on a 12 to 14 week lead time at the moment. Sorry, this is really bad plug. But they said, we've got a suit here that was made for Sean Connery, but he didn't want it. So you give us the money for it and you can have it. And he tried it on, and the only thing they needed to do was just take the sleeves down because his arms are a little bit longer. But he's a very similar sort of build as Connery, tall, broad shoulders, all the rest of it. And then from there, he went to the Dorchester to see Connery's barber and told him to cut his hair like Connery as well. At the moment he was in the chair having his hair cut, Cubby Broccoli was sat behind him, but didn't realise who he was. He just thought he was some sort of well-to-do businessman or something because he had to have a lot of money to be in a place like that. So he managed to get himself in, and then long story short, they were considering him seriously for the part. But then he suddenly realised that he was getting out of his depth because, he was going to be going up against all these well-established actors and so on. And he'd never been in anything before. He talked a big game. He told them that he'd been in films in Germany and Japan, and according to Lazenby, he was just thinking on the spot of places where he thought there was low chance of them ever being able to check and find out that, verify whether he'd actually been in these films in these places or not. And having blagged his way in, he then tried to blag his way out when he realised they were getting serious and they wanted him, and that he might actually just not be very good at it. So then he tried his best to get out of there, culminating with telling the Broccolis that he couldn't take the role because he was due to film in Paris the next weekend. And Broccoli said to him, "How much do you get paid? How much are you getting paid for the film work in Paris?" And Lazenby said, £500. And Broccoli basically wrote him a check and said, "Here's 500 quid, get yourself to set tomorrow morning." And that was that. So yeah, it's a funny start for him. But the introduction I thought was good. There was a lot of sort of, oh, and oh my God, at that beach fight scene, because it was quite visceral, it was quite violent. And apparently in the auditions, they wanted to see what he was capable of, and he knocked one of the stuntmen out, apparently, or knocked him flat on his back.
Broke his nose as well.
Yeah. But I thought the introduction was really good, and I absolutely loved the bit at the end before they cut to the title sequence where he says, "This never happened to the other fella." But what did we think of Lazenby, his introduction, and what do we think of him overall in the film? I thought he did a pretty good job, considering. Go on then, Phil.
I was going to say, I think he made it his own in the sense that with Sean Connery, you got the sense that if there was ever any girls in the room, he was going to find a way to sexually assault them. Whereas this guy was a little bit more reserved and was willing to be a bit more, put on a bit more of a charm offensive. That's the sense I got from him. But I feel like
he does use the Connery slap at one point in the film, though, later on. Because I wrote it down in my notes.
I mean, he did, but
yeah.
To be fair, that was after Tracy's dad tried to pimp her off. So the slap was minor, to be fair.
Yeah.
But what I felt was that it was almost as if he had to kind of make excuses for the fact that Sean Connery wasn't on the screen. So they had to add that note as, this wouldn't happen to the other guy. I felt like that they were trying to kind of make excuses for the fact that Connery wasn't there.
They were kind of worried about changing Bond because by this time Sean Connery is so well established as Bond, right? And, audiences had bought into the whole thing. They had this formula coming together and so on. And, it's like the title sequence, Phil, where they have the flashbacks to the villains of the original films and the Bond girls from the original films, but they never actually show Connery at all. But they're trying to show that this is the same series, it's the same kind of story or whatever. It's just the guy that has changed. What happened on set, he was getting calls for second unit stuff on the weekends. And the stuntman would tell him privately that Sean Connery would never get called back on the weekends. And so Lazenby kept saying, you didn't do this to the other guy, this didn't happen to the other guy, constantly to the producers and the directors. And I can't find my notes what the original line that was written was, but it was kind of subtly referential to the fact that he was a different actor playing the same character. And they did the take, and the director said, "Do it again, but say what you've been saying to all the guys in private." That was the second take, basically, and that's the line. But I laughed at that, and it didn't take me out of the film. Even though it was breaking the fourth wall, I just found it really charming, and it was funny, and it kind of endeared me to him straight away. Rich?
I like it too. It's a great moment in the film that does differentiate against Connery. And James Bond is fun. And that was just that little bit of lightheartedness in what is, as we'll discuss later, especially after the opening scene, as you mentioned, it's violent, it's hard-hitting. The whole film is not as much fun as some other Bonds. So that was just, for me, it was just a nice bit of lightheartedness, pointing out that he's not Connery and that he is his own thing, and off he goes. And I like it. It didn't ruin the film. It doesn't take me out of the film. It's like you, it endears you to him. It brings the audience closer to him, I think. And it works for me.
I also like the fact that when he was playing Baccarat, he didn't have to be a winning player. I think if Sean Connery was in the scene, he would demand that he wins the hands every single time. But he was like, well, it's not really my game. Oh, by the way, here's however many francs get you out of this predicament. I'm not sure Sean Connery would do that.
So for me, what I really noticed, and I don't know how much, and you may know more about this from the history of the film, I don't know how much promotion there was of George Lazenby himself as the actor in the film, because what I did notice was previous Bond movies, because you get some of the really, really cheesy 60s trailers as the extra features. Sean Connery is James Bond, all those sort of trailers. They never had that with this film. I think they were a bit concerned about George Lazenby as the new Bond. But what I did like was the way that the opening sequence very slowly and carefully revealed who he was. So every shot of him, holding the cigarettes in the car and lighting up and so on, you saw the side of his face in the silhouette or the back of his head. So you couldn't tell who the guy was until he jumps out the car and chases down Tracy at the beach. And I quite like that as an intro as well. It kind of eased you into Bond in a kind of classical way. But there's some lovely, I'll say it again, there's some lovely cinematography in this first sequence. Especially the fight on the beach you mentioned in the water with the silhouettes and the glistening water. It really struck me. I remember the version I watched was the remastered 4K version. And it really sort of punched out at me in terms of the presentation. So I thought it was a really fabulous introduction to George Lazenby at the beginning of the film, with an instant sort of minor car chase and the fight and the intrigue and the sort of setting up what this mysterious woman is. I really enjoyed that.
I just want to say one thing they did in terms of that opening sequence that you mentioned, John, was that they zoomed in on his chin cleft, which Sean Connery doesn't have, which showed that he had there was going to be someone different and someone new in this film.
Yeah, I didn't like that. That chin's... my mum always used to... my mum's from India, so she would always say that people that have that in their chins, they're God's rejects, because God pushed them out of heaven, and that's how they get there.
Bobby's pointing the finger at his chin and pushing his head away, as if he's being rejected here. Yeah. Audio listeners.
It's like, imagine you're standing on the edge of a cloud in paradise, and God looks at you and says, I didn't do a very good job, and then he pushes you away. Anyway, sorry. To answer your question...
Steve Davis has got one and used to say that he used to rest his cue in it, and that made his cue steady.
He was my favourite player as a child. I idolised him. To answer your question, John, so it was well publicised that Lazenby, when he was cast, was going to be Bond, but the teaser posters, you can look them up online, but the teaser posters basically just show his face as a shadow. And either he's got a gun in front of it or, James Bond 007 is back, but the writing's over his face. Was meant to add to the intrigue that there was going to be obviously a new person playing the character. But his name's plastered all over the posters and publicity stuff for this film anyway, so it wasn't a secret.
I mean, you couldn't Google him though, could you? In those days, you couldn't Google image him. So for some people, it probably still wasn't a mystery.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, that's true. Oh wow, I didn't even think about that. The other thing that was going on at the time is that there was a slew of spy stuff had become very fashionable. So you had Roger Moore just finished season 1 of The Saint. Then you had Frank Sinatra was in his own spy series. Sammy Davis Jr. was in his own spy series. Dean Martin. In fact, all 3 of the Rat Pack were involved in their own kind of spy stuff. There were, I think it was it in like Flint or something like that, had come out about the same sort of time. But all the other studios were basically cashing on the success of Bond, heading into sort of the 70s, which is why Lazenby was apparently blowing hot and cold. One moment it was great, he wanted the role. The next it was like he didn't want to continue. And it's because he just didn't feel that this genre was going to last into the 70s, that by the time we got to the 70s, it would be something else. So coming on to other cast members, Diana Rigg, who was cast as Tracy, and Diana Rigg's established actress by this stage, Emma Peel in The Avengers. You viewers can't see this at home. It's going to be so fun from the autumn when we start video recording these for YouTube. But we're definitely going to get an explicit rating. I mean, yeah, absolutely beautiful. I mean, I can think of other Bond girls that I thought were stunning, like Jane Seymour, in a couple of films' time. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. But Diana Rigg, wow, I mean, wow.
It's her voice as well, isn't it? Just the combination of the voice and the person. Oh,
yeah, she's just
Oh,
everything.
okay, we'll
And I
see-
like
see
how
her,
I like how strong they made her. Like she beat the shite out of that guy towards the end of the film in the mountain sequence.
In my notes, that's one of the things that I comment is that she's strong in the same way that Halle Berry is later on. You know, she skis as well as Bond does. She drives as well as Bond does. She plays cards probably better than Bond does. And yeah, she can fight as well too. She's perfect. She's not a downtrodden woman that Bond has to rescue at all. And that's brilliant.
well, I mean, I guess they
she's-
can't ruin Diane Rigg's image from her, the Avengers days, can they? That would ruin her, the character from if she was a bit of a fake kind of help me, sort of damsel in distress.
It could be a case of they obviously had seen the Avengers and knew what she's like. So it's a case of, can you come and do this on the big screen, please? We'll dress you in some. Well, even then, it was in the Avengers. It was all very upper class. So it was come and do this for an hour and a half and be on James Bond. So she probably didn't have to change the acting style much to be Tracy, and it worked. You know, employ people who don't have to act much. So yeah, they did, and they got her.
They loved sort of drawing talent from the Avengers, didn't they? Because Patrick McNee was in Living Daylights, I want to say. Was it A View to a Kill? I think A View to a Kill. And then Joanna Lumley's in this because she's one of the angels or whatever the hell they are.
She is. On a Blackman.
To kill Patrick O'Neill was in by them.
Exactly. On a Blackman we had in Goldfinger.
Yeah.
Galore. I must be dreaming. But Phil, Diana Rigg, where does she stand in the pantheon of Bond girls? I've got to look that word up. I don't even know what pantheon means. But anyway, she sounded cool.
She's definitely up there, and she had a presence. And I like the fact that, she's a British actress that what she gave on the screen was someone that was very well travelled and been around many places and seen the world. Because she'd had elements of French, she had elements of Italian. She was comfortable skiing in Switzerland. I personally would say, as far as a favourite Bond girl so far, I think it's the girl from Russia with Love.
Okay. We'll find out her name, because I can't remember it.
It's probably in here somewhere.
Just looking at my ranking, that's still my favourite Bond film so far.
Daniela Bianchi is Tatiana. Was it her?
Yeah, that's the one.
Diana Riggs, I think my favourite, and was for years after the first time I saw that film. I just went, wow, that's the perfect Bond girl. In fact, I have a book somewhere that I'll bring with me next time I'm down on 50 years of Bond girls. Apparently, I said I threw out quite a lot of books or took to charity shop, but that one's staying.
Bit like Bond keeping that copy of Playboy.
Well, on Her Majesty's Secret Service was first serialised in Playboy, wasn't it?
Oh,
So that's probably why they
Yeah, that's the Easter egg, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's very nice.
We're going to put that issue of Playboy into the gadgets section because we are a bit light on gadgets in this film. Before we move on to that, though, I do want to talk about Telly Savalas as Blofeld. Because, again, like the film, he divides opinion. People either seem to herald him as the best portrayal of Blofeld ever, and other people are quite irked by the fact that he's American, his accent doesn't suit Blofeld's kind of European sort of vibe. It's a tricky one. At one point, what irked me about him was the fact that he didn't recognise Bond when they'd faced off previously in You Only Live
But he looks
Twice,
different, Bobby.
Then I realised...
He's got a cleft in his chin now.
Well, originally there was meant to have been a sequence at the beginning of the film and a big explosion, and then Bond undergoes plastic surgery, and that's how they would explain. That was in the second draft, I think the second or third treatment of the script before they decided just to go back to the source material.
I think they nicked that from the Knight Rider, nicked that from Bond, didn't they, as well?
Probably, yeah. Wow, Knight Rider. Like all the vehicle shit, we've talked about this before, haven't we? Airwolf, Knight Rider, Street Hawk, Blue Thunder. Blue Thunder was awesome. Why are you raising eyebrows?
Because they started to change from the sort of hero action flicks to porn titles now, really. That's why I'm getting a bit confused there.
No, Blue Thunder was
Blue Steel.
Blue Thunder was like Airwolf.
I was never allowed to watch that.
Airwolf was Jan Michael Vincent, black and white helicopter, right? And then Blue Thunder was Roy Schneider from
Jaws.
Yeah, and it was a blue helicopter that looked way cooler than the Airwolf. But yeah, you didn't watch that? Oh my god!
I think I have.
We were sport for TV when we were kids, guys. That was the golden age.
Yeah.
I love Tony Savalas as Blofeld. To be fair, I like all three. Donald Pleasance, of course, is great, and then he's in Rocky Horror Show, so he earns extra points. I love Christoph Waltz. I think he brings it up to date nicely. He matches the tone of the Daniel Craig films to do a Blofeld in that. But Tony Savalas is great. His ancestry is Greek anyway. So anybody that says, "Oh, there wasn't enough European," well, point in that direction. Yes, he was the first American. But also, what I like about Tony Savalas that I found out today is that he was also in The Greatest Story Ever Told with Donald Pleasance and Max von Sydow, all Bond baddies. And he was in Escape to Athena with Roger Moore and David Niven, who both played Bond. So I love Tony Savalas. I think he's creepy, but gentlemanly in a baddie Bond kind of way. I think he's great.
It's kind of a more hands-on, sophisticated Blofeld, I thought. You know, it's just these little mannerisms, the way he lights a cigarette or the way he takes a drink.
I noticed the way he held his cigarette, but then that's because his index finger's short, which I looked up.
Okay.
He has a shorter index finger on his left hand.
I felt as Blofeld, Telly Savalas was a lot more hands-on. I felt other Blofelds were a bit more. He had henchmen that would do the killing for him and would actually go out and hunt him, whereas he was willing to go onto a bobsleigh to try and get rid of him, which I can't see other Blofelds doing. He was less of a mystery. It was a lot more in your face.
Yeah, I mean, there was that moment, because there's another... I have to go back to my oh my god moments, and then I'm really sorry, but my stupid cocker, I think, has dropped his ball underneath a bookcase, and he's making so much bloody noise, I need to retrieve it for him. Right, there you go. Could you fuck off? Right, no, go away. I'm not playing fetch with you now.
They don't teach that at dog training school.
Go to bed. Go to bed. Stay. Good boy. I think it's up on the mountain when they realise Bond has managed to escape and he's on skiing down the slope, and Blofeld stroking his cat, and literally he's like, "What the fuck? Hold my beer!" and literally throws the cat on the desk, and then he like suits up and gets out there.
You never see the cat again either after that, do you?
You never see exactly.
He's down some mountain on a single ski somewhere.
But I mean, obviously, the reason why he doesn't recognise Bond, or Bond doesn't, because they haven't met before, because this was out of sequence, because On Her Majesty's Secret Service was meant to have been 2 or 3 movies ago, and because of rights and things that we talked about in the last episode, it didn't happen, and also they had location problems and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, Telly Savalas was good. I think it, again, Rich, talking about Christoph Waltz and so on, the Blofelds have been kind of Blofelds of their time. I've heard that who plays him in the next one, in Diamonds Are Forever, I heard that he's not very good. Donald Pleasance, for me, I think was my favourite so far, though, because he's just the right level of proper creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that guy, he's unpredictable. You don't know what the hell is going on behind that weird eye. But Telly Savalas, yeah, he was good. He was a kind of sophisticated kind of Bond. And his sort of plot, holding the world to ransom, and the way he was doing it kind of made sense. Actually, I mean, it was pretty damn evil, biologically or chemically affecting the reproduction system of plants and animals and stuff. Is pretty flipping evil.
A plot that's been used more recently in a film as well.
I wonder which one. What film was that?
It involved animals that were originally found in amber.
Oh, the documentary about the dinosaurs.
Yes. Documentary.
Yeah. I know. I missed the last part. I wonder if Dispatches or whoever Channel 4 will be showing it soon. Yeah, Telly Savalas, I think we all agree, did a really good job.
I was a bit confused by Telly Savalas. I thought initially they were being quite clever here, and he was another character playing number one to cover up for number one hiding away, like a sort of a front man pretending to be number one. Because of the change in actor, it kind of threw me. Because I had this dim memory of seeing Donald Pleasance fall down a chimney stack on a wheelchair. I don't know why. Why do I think that? Is there a Bond film where
I don't know.
a bad guy falls down a chimney stack in a wheelchair?
Right, hang on. Let me look this up.
Anyway.
Rich, can you help with that one at all?
Yeah, he drops him off. He picks him up on his helicopters, doesn't he?
But is that number one that happens to?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Donald Pleasance falling down a chimney stack.
You're doing the old Dali AI artwork thing now, are you? We should do it. See what happens. Yeah, Donald Pleasance. I like him. I thought Telly Savalas was quite good. I think they chose him because the role was more active than Donald Pleasance could cope with in terms of fitness and sort of fight scenes and running around and skiing down mountains. I don't think Donald Pleasance could ski, could he? And I think they had to find someone with no earlobes for a start. You can't really take that out of the scene, can you? Which is an interesting fact. I think I keep getting him mixed up with his other roles in what was his famous police character?
Kojak. Who loves you, baby?
Well, I waited and waited and waited for him to pull out a lollipop and realised it was not going to happen in the Bond film. That's the problem.
But he apparently more than half of Telly Savalas' films, he was the baddie. That's what he did.
Yeah.
Despite apparently, according to everything I read, being a really, really nice man who everybody loved. Everybody who worked with him absolutely loved him.
I'd love it if they brought him into the next Fast and Furious film as Vin Diesel's dad. He's no longer with us. He's no longer with us. But he just reminds me.
No, he's not.
A sort of 1960s, 1970s version of him.
John, you were thinking of For Your Eyes Only.
Yeah. Is that number one?
It's someone who may or may not be Blofeld, apparently.
Right.
And it's the guy who played Lobot in The Empire Strikes Back.
No.
Yeah.
There we go. There's our link to Star Wars universe. Anyway.
Exactly. There you go. That's the reason I was banging on about Star Wars earlier. And how did we feel about the returning actors? Lois Maxwell, what's his face as M, and
Desmond Llewellyn as Q.
There wasn't. Yeah, exactly. I thought there was a nice moment between Desmond Llewellyn and George Lazenby, or the characters, when he says to him, "I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, etc., etc." I thought that was quite nice, and also I thought Lois Maxwell, it was such a touching moment when they just have that look before Bond gets in the wedding car to go, and she's got a tear in her eye, and then he throws his hat to her for the last time, for what we think is the last time. I thought that was all great. What about you guys?
I was just saying, when he threw the hat, it kind of reminded me of the symbolism of the girl catching the bouquet at the wedding. It was kind of like that. Like there might have been a chance that she'd find that she'd one day get with Bond, or she'd find someone that was going to be right for her.
I like the fact that M is a butterfly fan, a lepidopterist. I thought that was quite amusing. It kind of suits his character, this kind of meticulous, but at the same time small-mindedness almost. And I love the fact that Bond could straight away name the species he was pinning to a board and surprising him with his knowledge. I thought that was quite funny.
Rich?
I thought they were great as always. Bernard Lee as M is fantastic. M, by the way, being the first initial of the original boss of the Secret Intelligence Service. He was actually known by C, which was the initial from his surname. And Desmond Llewellyn is from Newport as well. He went to the same school as my children go to.
Oh wow. That's so cool. Was he buried in Newport?
No, I think he was in, I want to say Buckinghamshire, one of the home counties when he died. But yeah. Okay. No, I love them. I like a Bond film without gadgets, which, as we'll get to soon, is great for this one. But unfortunately, that means less chance for Q. And anything with Q in is always great, just to have Desmond Llewellyn on screen. And yeah, I also like Ben Whishaw, and I love Ralph Fiennes as M later on. But yeah, I thought they were great, and Bernard Lee works as a tough boss. He's always saying to Bond, don't go off on a private mission, which unfortunately would cut out about half the films. But yeah, I thought they're great. Lois Maxwell is always amazing. She just is. I'm old enough to have watched all of them before they changed those actors, before Judi Dench came in and then Ralph Fiennes. So even now, when I watch a new one, I go, you're not really Miss Moneypenny, are you? There's a lot to live up to.
That's really funny because cinematically, I mean, Brosnan is my first Bond, because I don't remember the Moore ones that much. And I'm so excited to get to them. I wanted to sound the team out about switching to bi-weekly, because I just want to get to the Roger Moore films as quick as I can. So Samantha Bond really is my Moneypenny, and Judi Dench is M as far as I'm concerned. So it's been, a bit of a paradigm shift, I guess, to go back to these movies and get used to these people in these roles. Anyone else who stood out? I really like Gabriele Fazzetti as Draco. I thought he was so cool.
He's very charismatic,
really cool. Apart from the bit where he goes to rescue Tracy from the mountain, and she's like, no, we can't leave James behind, and he's like, he doesn't need you, you don't need him, or whatever, you're coming with us, and then he literally just knocks her out. I was like, what the?
I think chloroform would be more, humane, I guess.
Yeah.
When you want to render your child unconscious.
But I mean, other than that, he was. I mean, it was not his fault. It was the script, obviously. But I thought he was great.
I mean, it's his first comment. His first comment when he was talking to Bond about, you've got to get her. What she needs is a man to dominate her, to make love to her. That's kind of framing his opinion of his own daughter, really, isn't it? More than anything else.
And then Ilse Steppat as Irma Bunt. She was fantastic.
Yeah, she died a week after the film was released.
Oh my God.
She was 52. She had a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
But, I thought she was great, and I love Draco. I thought he pulled off the boss of a crime syndicate that isn't Brando really well. And I thought it was really good. Union Course is mentioned in Day of the Jackal, which came out 2 years later, because it's mentioned how the French government used Union Course contacts to hunt down the Jackal unsuccessfully. But yeah, I loved him, and I loved his suits.
We are going to talk about the Bond girls later on, but I was particularly taken by Ruby, Angela Schuyler. Just that kind of... It was nice to see a Lancashire lass, a brash Lancashire lass as a Bond girl, but also I thought she really had presence in this film. But we'll talk about her later on, but she stood out for me as a character in this film as well, more than anyone else.
I mean, she seemed to be a bit mental to me. She was married to Leslie Phillips in real life, wasn't she? The actor Leslie Phillips?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, from Carry On films.
Yeah.
Rather. Yeah, she was married to him.
Ding dong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
from Bristol.
I've never really seen any of the Carry On films. I remember the one with Barbara Windsor. They're doing the workout. And her bra snaps.
Yeah, but the black and white ones are better. Carry On Teacher is absolute classic. It's fantastic, and Leslie Phillips is brilliant in it. The black and white Carry-Ons are brilliant. Proper brilliant.
I love it when I say I haven't seen something and you lot just absolutely flip out. Like, honestly, it's so funny to see. By the way, Phil, you're supposed to be our resident fact person, and Richard's like 20-0 up at the moment. He's absolutely destroying you this week. What's going on?
I will say that we're going to get to, because you haven't really got to it yet, but...
okay, so your moment to shine is yet to come.
There's a couple of things I kind of looked into from this film, but there wasn't a lot to go on in terms of the economy or anything like that, which is kind of my bread and butter. I'm still just dumbfounded that you haven't really seen any Carry On films.
Yeah, that's going to be hard to get over, really.
The weird thing is, right, I think what it was is that my mum and dad, so we're going to segue again here now, but we're all friends. I think what it was is that my parents found them a bit too saucy for a young Asian child. So that's probably why I wasn't allowed to watch them. But here's a contradiction. by the age of 5, I'd seen Poltergeist. Name any of the 70s greatest horror films.
Yeah.
I'd seen The Poltergeist, I'd seen The Exorcist,
Yeah.
I'd seen the original Nightmare on Elm Street, I'd seen Friday the 13th, I'd seen Halloween with Donald Pleasence.
Shining.
The Shining, any of the other Stephen King adaptations that were done in the early
Carrie,
80s,
The
late
Omen.
70s. Seeing Carrie, The Omen, parts 1 and 2. All of them. She sat me in front of those absolutely fine.
I mean,
But,
Carry On was
stuff like
always.
Carry On was deemed to be too rude.
I mean, it was always titillation rather than anything else, and it was very British, much like the Confessions of films, Confessions of a Milkman and so on, with very famous actor. I can't remember his name now. Blonde hair.
Robin
Asquith. That's it. Robin Asquith. It was again. It's something that we will always succeed as an export from our country, because especially the Americans, but the rest of the world really lap up the British humour in that respect, which is why Bridgerton and things like that are very popular TV programs now. But I tell you what, you could do an entire podcast series all about the Carry On movies, and we can talk hours about that as well. It's some homework for you, I think, Bobby. Watch some Carry On movies. Oh, look at his face! It's like he's eating a bad fish.
I've got other things to do, like watch Star Wars Rebels and The Bad Batch and things like that, John. And catch up on the Clone Wars as well. Anyway, we're digressing. So I think we're about done on the cast, aren't we? Let's talk about gadgets. So there weren't any, apart from at the beginning, when he opens a glove box and there's the sort of rifle periscope thing that he uses to sort of look at where she's going on the beach in the beginning. But other than that, there weren't really any gadgets at all in this film. I mean, they took the mick out of the gadgets in the very beginning, because in Q Branch, it's like, it's the latest thing is this microscopic tiny
radioactive lint.
I mean, yeah, that's it. So but that was meant to be a piss take, basically. But it was very deliberate taking all the gadgets out of this, because it was all to do with the change in tone and staying faithful to the original book. But Phil, you had something to say.
Well, there was the very first thing that Q talks about is miniaturization. So I was waiting to see something about miniaturization in the film, and there wasn't any. The only thing that struck me was, where they could have had close-ups of the cars. I wanted to see a close-up of the Aston Martin. I couldn't see one. They were all too far away, which was a shame. So in that respect, they were miniaturized, but there was nothing. There was no actual gadgets that had any kind of miniaturization throughout the film.
On your point, Phil, about miniaturization, the thing that made me laugh most of all was going back to that scene where he's photocopying the documentation from what's his name, Gunter? No, that's the guy from Friends, isn't it?
Gumball.
That's it, Gumball.
Oh, yeah.
So he's got his mate who looks like Johnny Lee Miller's dad out on the building site, right? Who has a bit of a sticky end later, doesn't he, on the snow? He gets him to bring over this gadget in the cement mixer holder, and this is it's like bringing in a jukebox. This thing's massive, and showing off his strength. Well, he pulls it out and opens it all up, and it's like a drinks cabinet inside, isn't it? And he's got the fax machine and the safe cracker with a whole long lead that comes off. An amazing gadget that was obviously complete nonsense. But miniaturization, wouldn't they have it sort of backpack sized or something on his belt instead? If they're making these comments at the beginning of the film, it seemed sort of out of context with Q's comments at the beginning of the film.
For the late 60s, a printer, stroke fax machine, stroke scanner, stroke safe cracker in one that could fit into an attaché case was miniature. If you think about it, because one of those would have been
a whole room, probably.
Probably taken a whole room. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's it. But I've got a HP printer here, which is one of those new ThinkJet things that's got individual tanks that are supposed to last forever. And that damn thing doesn't even connect to Wi-Fi. So, and we're like 50 odd years on. I don't understand. But anyway, sorry, Phil.
No, I was actually going to talk about the Johnny Lee Miller character because it was very mysterious. I wrote down he looked more like Michael Sheen rather than sort of Johnny Lee Miller. But I was waiting to kind of see his character develop, and it didn't really. He was just kind of in the background as a kind of mysterious sort of henchman sort of guy, sort of arguing about why he couldn't go up to the mountain.
Yeah, well, he's an MI6 colleague of Bond's who's there to help him out, Phil.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we could say he's 006, because 006 always gets killed. Or is that 003?
006 dies, 008 dies. Generally, apart from Bond, if you've got a 00, you're going to die at some point.
Can I just say on that note that my son came in whilst I was watching OMHS, and he went, "Oh, it's OO7." I was like, "What are you talking about?" "Yeah, it's OO7." I had to explain to him that it was 00, not OO. Sounds like a monkey.
I like that. That's what we're going to call it now.
OO7.
OO7.
Tune in. Yeah, if you enjoyed this episode, which has been absolutely terrible so far, then tune in next time for the next OO7 film. Diamonds are whoever.
Whoever. Michael Sheen's from Newport as well.
Hey!
Welshman. Actually, it's true. We got two Welsh people on today, Evans and
Yep.
Gore. Great. There was the other gadget though. I'm going to get you a replica, Phil. It's the little makeup case with the radio that Blofeld gives to all the girls in their goodie
The
bag.
hypnosis radio thing, wasn't it? Hypnosis walkie-talkie.
And von Sporren.
Nice.
That could count as a gadget because we're so light on gadgets. I'm clutching at straws here.
Yeah.
Bit like that. The girl in Room 8 was clutching onto Lazenby's you know what. So, bit of trivia here. So what they did, they decided to play a trick on her. They got a warm sausage and strapped it to his thigh. And then they started filming. And the idea was that she would be so shocked that he was... And so she reaches under and then she has a good feel around, grabs onto it. And then after they finished, and they carried on, finished the filming the scene because she didn't flinch. And then when they finished filming, she just turned around to Lazenby and said, "Oh, you really are completely naked under there." So she was completely not fazed. She knew what they were up to. She was completely not fazed by it. But apparently, you were talking about Sex Pest, Phil. Apparently, Lazenby, because they were stuck up on that mountain for 2 months because of filming delays with the weather and all that sort of thing. The girls were holed up there for all that time, and Lazenby apparently was trying to get into their knickers, and they weren't having it because Joanna Lumley had taught the girls how to crochet, knit, and that's what they were busy doing. So Lazenby and the other male members of the crew were sort of started off quite happy that they were going to be stuck there for 8 weeks with all this quote unquote crumpet. And then they just got ignored by the girls for the whole time because they were busy just knitting sweaters or whatever for themselves.
Yeah.
That's really
Joanna
fascinating.
Lumley saving humanity again.
Exactly.
Well,
She's amazing.
in an interesting link to crochet, Dame Judi Dench, who played M later on in the films, one of her favourite things to do on film sets, because there's a lot of waiting around on film sets, she would crochet for the cast or all the camera crew, and she would crochet obscene swear words for them all as a gift to keep her busy doing these scenes. So I like that. That's trickled down from the late 60s as well.
On that scene with that Lancashire lass, that was
Angela
what struck me.
Scooter.
Yeah. What struck me about it was actually about an hour and a half before there was any kind of innuendo joke that came from George Lazenby. So he was talking about, do you feel unwell? He goes, "I've got I'm slightly stiffened," and that was the first time in like an hour and a half that there was any kind of smutty joke that was put into the film.
I don't think that the quips in this film, apart from the very first one about the other fella, I don't think they stood up to quite the standard later on in the film to get with Moore. I mean, Moore was the king of the quips, but I don't think they felt a little bit a bit lackluster and forced in this film, which is a real shame because I like the idea of what they're doing. What do you think, Richard? I can see you nodding there.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the quips felt forced and sort of pushed in. And the bit where he first escapes and shoves the guy in a cupboard and says, "You should have been gift wrapped."
Yeah.
It's like, I thought it would have been better if they just left him out and not worried about it. The film is hard hitting and gritty compared to other Bonds, and that's part of the reason I like it. So why bother? Just don't worry about it. You've had a bit of a laugh at the beginning. There's some other mildly amusing bits that might make you smile. Stiffness one, leave in, but then after that you just think you're trying too hard. You're trying too hard to be funny, and it's not working.
Part of it as well, the reason why they didn't land is because he's not Connery, and I'm really sorry to say that, but that's if you imagine Connery delivering those lines, they would have passed the litmus test, right? Because he's got that natural swagger and confidence, and Lazenby just doesn't.
No, so why they were? It was as though they were putting Connery's words into his mouth, and that doesn't work. You wouldn't expect Timothy Dalton to try that. They wouldn't have tried it with Timothy Dalton, and that's what I like. That's why George Lazenby. We didn't mention this because we talked a lot about it at the beginning, but George Lazenby is up there as one of my favourite Bonds because he is harder, like Timothy Dalton was, and like Daniel Craig is. Whereas I find Roger Moore a bit too soft and too quick with the jokes. I like George Lazenby and I liked Timothy Dalton. And every time we do it, it goes in cycles where they brought in Roger Moore and then Timothy Dalton came in and everybody hated him for being too dour and serious. And then we had Pierce Brosnan, and then who wasn't. And then when Daniel Craig came in, everybody was going, "Oh, it's great that we've got somebody who can take it seriously," because he was a spy and a killer. So yeah, I love the fact that George Lazenby is serious. I think George Lazenby is easily as good as Pierce Brosnan. I think he's got the right blend of trying to be funny. I think they could have done better, but he's definitely got that hard edge that Daniel Craig and Timothy Dalton has.
I thought it was. I mean, he's cheeky as well in this, but I thought it was really.
Yeah.
It felt a bit out of character, and I thought about this when I saw it. It's the only Bond film where he's got kind of a Shaggy and Scooby moment, where he dresses up as Sir Hilary Bray, and they actually used the voice of George Baker for that scene. It wasn't Lazenby's voice. I just felt that felt really kind of out of sync with the character. You don't. He is a hard-hitting spy, and yes, they do wear disguises, but it struck me as a bit Carry On almost, that scene, that kind of whole sequence, and the long boring talk about Heldry at the dinner, even though the women were all fascinated by him in his kilt. It just felt a little bit. This is not Bond. Yeah. Although I enjoyed it, I thought it was hilarious at parts. It just didn't feel like Bond. If that makes sense.
Although, of course, the heraldry bit's great when we learn that the world is not enough is a family motto, and gives name to the next film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote that down. It's in Latin, isn't it?
I love those little Easter eggs. Speaking of which, just at the beginning, just to go back, when he's in the MI5 office and he's resigned, or he thinks he has, but what Moneypenny's done is dictated the letter, or
2 weeks
written out
leave.
the letter, but just asked for 2 weeks leave. And and he takes his briefcase to then put some of his mementos, and there's the knife from Dr. No, and the whatever from, well, I guess the case itself is from Russia with Love.
Swain Adney Brigg, isn't it? The case.
Sorry?
It's a Swain Adney Brigg case.
Oh my God, Rich. Is this what we're doing when you come down to London in a couple of weeks? We're going shopping for one of those.
I've looked at Swain Adney Brigg and I cannot afford one.
Oh, you mean they cost more than one of my suits?
Yeah. Yeah, they do. And the one, and Sean Connery's one from Dr. No, I think it is, doesn't even have any compartments in. You know how an attaché case would open up and have a compartment with pen and calculator and all that stuff, especially if you're in the 80s, your Zion or electronic organizer. The Sean Connery's one doesn't. It's black leather with a red suede lining, and that's it. No compartments apart from the knife and
the sovereigns.
And the sovereigns, yeah.
And the sovereigns, don't forget those.
Yeah, but I think the sovereigns were worth more than the case. But it's touch and go because they are supremely expensive.
I'm wondering if he does resign in Diamonds Are Forever and has to pack his things up, that will then get the same gadgets go in or whatever, mementos, and then from this film he puts in that Playboy folded back on that woman who we almost saw everything. They just had him folded at the very last second.
I did pause it at that point. And
on the 4K version as well.
And you do see quite a lot. Lazenby kind of, I better put it back quickly. Whoops, I was on camera.
So while we're talking about Playboy and the Hillary What's-It scene up on the mountain with the Angels of Death, there was something so wrong about this. So these girls are up there in Blofeld's fake clinic trying to get help to get rid of their allergies or whatever. And they're all on very specific diets, right? So you got the English girl who's only eating sugar. But then they sort of quickly cut to the Chinese girl who's only eating rice. And the black girl who's only eating bananas. And the Indian girl who's only eating what looked like chapatis.
Yeah, it was.
It was so fucking wrong. Yeah. What the hell? Like, I don't care that my clean rating is out the window for this episode. I'm so sorry, Apple Podcast. Downgrade us, whatever. But what the fuck? Like, seriously, did they not intentionally know what they were doing there? I mean, I don't know if they shot to the Israeli girl and the German girl, but the German girl would have been, chomping on a bratwurst, and the Israeli girl would have been scooping hummus up like there was no tomorrow or something. I mean, what the? And I know you're going to say it was 1969 and all of that, but still, I mean, that was so. The African girl, especially.
Do you think Alf Garnett was the consultant for this scene?
Yeah, probably. They would then later, the scriptwriters will then go on to create Dad's Army. So did anyone else notice that?
Of course.
Yes,
absolutely.
But also one person was just eating chicken nuggets, and I thought that was really weird as well.
As a guy,
Were they the American one?
Yes, probably was actually. Yeah.
and there was a girl from Lancashire that was having like fried chicken. They couldn't figure out what to give the Brit because all we had in '69 was just beige food. We didn't have any good quality food in '69. But I suppose
I think the Brit was just eating brown sugar.
Yeah, may well have been. Yeah. There was someone that was just eating sweet corn. There was someone that had literally a corn on the cob as well, wasn't there?
Yes, I think that was the Caribbean character. I think.
Oh Jesus!
Because I did see that it's in a note somewhere in the trivia for this. I think it did mention her from Jamaica. But yeah.
But to be fair, I mean, we can talk about the fact this is 69 and stuff like that, but the reality is, more recently, if you watch Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, they're in a temple in the middle of nowhere, and they give Asian people, the snakes and the bugs, and they're eating monkey brain and stuff like that, because, that's what the Imperial Indian people did in the 1930s. No, we didn't. You know what I mean? So, they were... Many films prey on stereotypes, and this is just another example, I'm afraid.
So, moving on, let's talk about the outfits. So I really, really liked the tailoring in this because I thought it took a dip in You Only Live Twice because suddenly they'd gone very American, 2-button, like really low top button position, just did nothing for Connery whatsoever. And then I thought, generally speaking, apart from the kilt outfit and any time he was wearing those ridiculously frilly shirts, but the suits he was wearing were great. They were well cut. I noticed that there was a lot of 3-button going on in this. John is wagging his finger at me. If you're going to come at me, you better bring it.
I want to talk about the brown and orange sweater suit that he wore. That was hideous.
Yeah. It was disgusting.
Yeah. Bond would not be seen wearing one of those outfits. I'm sorry.
When I say, those are kind of becoming fashionable now. We're getting asked to make athleisure type suits. Like a bomber jacket with matching trousers in a stretchy material with a drawstring. Yeah, Richard is vigorously shaking his head.
Not wearing that.
Yeah, basically, those clients that come with those requests get blacklisted. It's like literally fuck off. I don't want to work for you anymore. But, I mean, his proper suit, like the suits that he wore when he was at MI5 in the office with them. That what he wore in those scenes was great. Everything else outside of that, when left to his own devices without a work dress code to guide him, was pretty awful. I mean, those shirts, and also not only the frills on those dress shirts, they were so see-through. It's like he was wearing a stocking. Yeah. So, Rich, being your favourite Bond film, so one of my favourite Bond films of all time is Casino Royale. I have the Omega Seamaster limited edition Casino Royale watch, which has gone in for its first ever service after 14 years. Just got the bill back. It's not pretty. And I got married 2 years after Casino Royale came out, and my wedding suit is practically a carbon copy of the Brioni that Daniel Craig wore in that film. And I have a couple more outfits from Skyfall and so on. What is on your wish list from On Her Majesty's Secret Service?
Draco's...
Bear in mind that I do need to make you a black tie at some point.
Yeah.
I've been taking notes on Lazenby's dinner shirts.
No, my dinner shirt should be the Casino Royale one. In fact, I've got an off the rack dinner shirt that has just the two pleats on the front, exactly the same as Daniel Craig's in Casino Royale. But I liked Draco's three-piece. I thought that was beautiful, and I liked. Apart from the shirt, I liked his dinner suit. I thought it looked really nice. It was, I couldn't get close up of the fabric, but it was cut nicely. Daniel Craig's suits are cut too tight. Lazenby's were cut a little looser than mine are now, but still you got the sense that they were cut nicely. Bond always has to do something in his dinner suit. In this film, he had to kill somebody in Living Daylights. And by the way, when we do my dinner suit, I want my lapels to fold up and button across so that I can shoot somebody with a sniper rifle, which is what Timothy Dalton does in Living Daylights. So pop that down. But yeah, I thought his dinner suit was lovely. I thought his Draco's three-piece was lovely. Three-piece with pinstripes at the end, where he's back in with them. Before he goes off with Draco to get rescue Tracy. I thought that was really smart. I'm not a fan of pinstripes, but he looks good in it, and it looked comfortable.
There was one suit that I liked that James Bond wore, which was a Prince of Wales check suit. That I really liked. I can't immediately think of any others that really stood out, because everything else was just overrun with these massive cravats and big frilly shirts. There was also a lot of high, like 3-button suits as well. And also I noticed that Draco, he didn't have vents at the back of his jacket either. I think out of all of the ones I saw in the film, if you had to make one for me, it would be the Prince of Wales check.
John, anything that inspired you in this?
Well,
by the way, just feel free to talk about Diana Rigg if you want.
Well, I will, because I've got all my notes from the film, and I would say every sort of 4 lines, highlighted in yellow, I've just written down Diane Rigg is sexy. Every 4 or 5 lines. I can show them to you if you want. They're highlighted in yellow. I've also got one which says, God, Diana Rigg is so gorgeous, romance montage. I'm scrolling now through my notes. Bond might be in a kilt, but Diana Rigg can wear anything. That's another one I've got. Best cleavage in Bond, which I'm sorry about, but it's true. Yeah. But I think of the 2 suits I would choose, and I kept very close track of all the suits, I did like his tweed and jodhpurs and riding boots. Yeah. I thought that was quite natty. I found it quite humorous that he kind of, bless him, he's trying his hardest to look like he fits in with all these different sort of outfits. But I think actually, not much screen time, but the very first suit that he wore was this, either a linen or a grey material. His very, very first suit before he wore the tux. Mm-hmm. I really like that. And it might have been a 3-piece. I can't remember, to be honest. I might even scroll through the movie now and have a look. But I thought that was really nice. I'd probably choose that one, to be honest. It was before he went to the casino. What was he? Yes, no, it was I can see it now. It's like a white. It's a lovely white.
It's like a white linen.
He's got
suit.
a pink shirt underneath though, and the pink really goes well with the white linen. I think he's just wandering around some hotel. Yeah, it is lovely. I'm just looking at it now.
Yeah,
it's a really nice cut to it.
Really good.
A really nice cut to it. And I'm just watching him being shown into his hotel room. It's got it's a 2-button by the looks of it, with a dark tie.
2-button. It's got very slanted pockets.
Yeah. Quite a high cut tail to it as well. Yeah, it's just before he jumps on the balcony with Diane Rigg, and they wriggle about a bit with the yellow cushions. It's that scene. But I would probably choose that suit, although I'd have to work on my figure before I could wear it. Should we go back to Phil's choice now? Gloss over that last comment.
Yes, Phil, are you back?
So you about choice of suit. So as I said, choice of suit, I would say, is definitely the Prince of Wales check suit that was featured. I don't know if you saw that one.
Yes, that's the one where he goes to the advocate's office with the photocopier thing and the Playboy.
I think it's where he gets kidnapped into the Rolls Royce with all of Draco's henchmen. No, I could be wrong. That could be the brown suit again.
No, it's the Playboy one.
It is it?
It's the Playboy one. Yeah, Phil's gone missing in action again. Okay, let's move on because I'm conscious of time. So, one thing that I did say when this film started, I said, "Wow!" at the cinematography. I thought to date it was one of the best looking Bond films of the 6 so far. It did look fantastic, and some of the shots were amazing, especially when we get to Pliss, whatever it's called, up on the mountain and all the skiing sequences and so on. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just thought the scope, it was beautifully shot. Richard, having seen all of the Bond films, how does this hold up in terms of cinematography for you?
It's beautiful. I mean, I most recently watched it on Apple TV, which I wouldn't be surprised is the 4K remastered version. And yeah, it's absolutely stunning. And of course, the score with it, with John Barry's music, like the ski chase with the music, and it looked beautiful. It was shot beautifully. I thought the fight scenes were reminiscent of Batman, but I thought they pulled it off really well because in 1969 there wasn't as much gratuitous violence as there is now, so things were left to the imagination a bit more. But I thought they did them brilliantly. I thought it was really, really well shot.
It was the saturation of the colours in the film as well.
I mean, the blue sky against the white mountain is incredible.
I mean, also, if you look at the suits and all the different outfits, all the characters wear, the locations, because this is the only Bond film to be entirely filmed in Europe. I thought the colour palette was really good in this film.
Yeah.
Sorry, Richard, carry on. I interrupted, but
no, I thought it was absolutely amazing. I mean, I came off watching it and just went, "Wow, what a film!" From a cinema point of view, if you ignore the plot, you can't ignore Diana Rigg because she's beautiful. But if you ignore everything else, just the photography and the cinematography and the music made you come away going, "Wow, that was amazing."
Yeah, the wide shots on the mountain, and then also the action sequences of the skiing were absolutely fantastic. They had the cameraman basically on a
Willy Bogner.
Yeah, he was on a parachute connected to a helicopter or something hanging out upside down. And then they had another one of the I think it might have been a stuntman with a camera so basically he could shoot while he was skiing with them from a distance. He could put the camera between his legs. He could sort of go backwards and stick it between his legs or whatever, do all sorts of things. And they just managed to get all these incredible shots. But it took time because they couldn't get, for those long ski runs, they couldn't... there were only like 2 cars going up and down the mountain every day. So they got all the way to the bottom and then they'd have to wait until the next car in the afternoon to go all the way to the top and then start again. And then if the weather wasn't quite right, that obviously caused a problem as well. But I mean, it paid off in the end because it did look absolutely glorious. I want to ask Phil, obviously, but he's having connection issues, unfortunately. But yeah, it did look glorious. And the avalanche scene. So apparently, that was filmed in stereo. And I was listening to the Really 007 podcast because those guys are doing, they're rewatching every Bond, but they're rewatching every Bond on the big screen. And they're going at a slightly faster clip than we are. I think they're doing one every couple of weeks or whatever. Because it's the 60th anniversary, obviously, this year. And so cinemas are showing all the old films, etc.
My local one is showing them all because they had Live and Let Die last week, but it's on a night where all the children are doing things I can't get out. It's very annoying because I could go and see them as well.
Yeah, So I think I'm going to have to do some of these older ones on the big screen, actually. Really kind of put myself into the mindset of a 1970s or whatever.
Well, if you're going to do it that way,
so cool.
you'll need to take a pack of cigarettes as well and smoke heavily whilst watching.
Yeah, smoke in the cinema.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And wait for the lady to come
They
out
don't
and
mind at all.
Tied around her neck as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, raise an eyebrow and proposition whoever's sitting next to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I might edit that bit out.
Hopefully, Carl sitting next to you.
And then obviously to go with cinematography, we've got the amazing soundtrack, one of the best soundtracks in the whole history of Bond. I talked about this at the beginning, the On Her Majesty's Secret Service, my favourite score. So the story there, someone did actually write lyrics to the film title, but they decided it was absolute crap. So they said to John Barry, you've got permission to go ahead and just write a score. He did come up with the lyrics because he said, for the Louis Armstrong song, is it Louis Armstrong?
Yeah, it's his last song.
Yeah.
He died 2 years after this.
I'm getting him mixed up with Lance
No,
Armstrong.
it's Louis Armstrong.
It definitely wasn't Lance Armstrong.
But John Barry liked the last line of the film, which was "We have all the time in the world," and so he wrote that song. But they decided to use that for the love scenes or the budding romance between Tracy and Bond, rather than over the title sequence. And I think it obviously was the right choice because that title sequence and that music is phenomenal. But you're right, John, because they also allowed him to use a synthesizer, and it was the most synthesized movie soundtrack in history to that point. Won loads of awards and so on as well.
It's such a good soundtrack.
I love the difference.
That they reused it in a more recent Bond film, didn't they, as well?
In
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die. Yeah. That's how I knew he was going to die in that, because as soon as I heard the strands from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I was like, I turned around to Caroline, I said, they killed a woman in that one, they got to kill a bloke in this one, so he's going to cop it. And we were in a packed cinema, and I sort of didn't moderate my volume.
Mate, I bet that went down well.
Yes, like the lead balloon, but I don't care, because anyway. So yes, and I thought the sound throughout was actually really good, because the avalanche scene was actually quite terrifying, and that was recorded in stereo. So apparently, if you hear it on a Dolby system in the cinema, it adds to the
I
drama.
listened to it in Dolby on my
because
HomePods, and it sounded amazing. And they've done some work with the helicopter sound effects as well, because at one point I got shocked. I thought something was going on the other side of my room, and it was a helicopter flying past the Piz Gloria, the rotating restaurant thing. So I was quite surprised by that. It wasn't extensive, but the old ones they did were really effective, and that avalanche is amazing.
Rich, you're really into your sound.
A little bit. Yep.
Yeah, a little bit. What's the setup that you've got at home, and did it do justice to this film? It's another stupid question to ask you, actually.
No, it's not a stupid question, because at the moment I'm halfway through decorating my living room, so it was just on the standard telly speakers, and they're not bad for standard telly speakers, but it isn't anything more impressive than that. So no, the TV doesn't do justice, but I've listened to the theme and had the theme on CD, and I've got it on LP as well. And in fact, I might be able to find it. Yeah, so I absolutely love the theme for Her Majesty's Secret Service. My records have been put away somewhere. So I think the theme's absolutely brilliant, and John Barry's a genius. It was absolutely perfect. Probably maybe my favourite of all the themes. It's spot on. You needn't have any other theme in any other Bond film.
I've got a bit of a soft spot for Live and Let Die, though.
Live and Let Die is amazing.
Yeah.
For the actual title song, the Paul McCartney Wings.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is one of my favourites. I love the Guns N' Roses version of that song.
Got that too. Yeah.
So awesome from Use Your Illusion 1.
It was also on the Days of Thunder soundtrack. No, sorry, that was Knocking on Heaven's Door. Guns N' Roses version of Live and Let Die is great. And I love all the Bond themes. All of them are great in their own way. We went to see the London Concert Orchestra do Bond, and they just went through all of them, which was really great. Although the male vocalist didn't pass out when singing Thunderball, so I thought that lacked a bit of authenticity. Because Tom Jones did. He held the note so long he passed out. But this was great. You can't put fitting in the words, and not every theme had the title of the film as the title of the song. All Time High, for instance. But you couldn't fit in On Her Majesty's Secret Service into a song without it sounding like you forced it in. So they didn't bother. And the film's all the better for it because it makes the film. The
lyricist who wrote the words to Goldfinger, did have a go.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, the producers basically looked at it and were like,
did you notice?
Nah, John, just do an instrumental
thing. Did you notice the Goldfinger reference in this film?
No, I probably missed it. There was a point where I did actually get up to go to the fridge because I sort of... we actually stopped it at one point because Carolina just completely lost interest.
Oh dear.
By the time Bond was running away, and then Tracy finds him, and he's looking all sort of scared and helpless and stuff. Carolina was like, "Nah, fuck this." She said, "Let's finish watching Stranger Things 4."
So there's a scene. I think it might be in the clinic where he walks past a guy with a broom sweeping the floor, and the janitor's whistling the theme to Goldfinger. Now I recognised it when I watched the film, but I had to look it up afterwards.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But
right.
I thought that's got to be a reference. I looked it up afterwards.
No, it was. It was.
Yeah, I listened.
Right,
I listened out for what he was whistling because I knew that would be something.
I can. Cool. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Yes.
Phil, are you back?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Phil, we're almost there.
Yeah.
We're almost at the end, but we were just talking about the soundtrack. Where does this rank in your sort of rating of the soundtracks we've had to date? Because you loved Matt Monroe's From Russia with Love, and you absolutely loved Goldfinger as well.
Oh, I also really liked Nancy Sinatra in You Only Live Twice. I thought that was a fantastic soundtrack, and they've actually progressively got better and better and better. And the peak, of course, is going to be when we hear Aha with The Living Daylights. But for right now, this is definitely the best one so far. What you don't like?
You and I might have to have a chat about this.
It's a fantastic song.
No, I love Aha's Living Daylights. I'm just wondering. It is. I agree, and I like Aha anyway. But I'm just working out if it is the peak.
I think it is the peak because
it's close.
I think it is the peak because the next one after that is License to Kill, which was a bit meh. So yeah, it is the peak.
Yeah.
I thought License to Kill was great. I remember that being on the radio, even though I hadn't seen the film. But I remember it being on the radio. I was in my dad's shop.
I don't think it's the best Bond theme, and I don't think it's Gladys Knight's best song.
Can I ask a question about Bond themes here?
Yeah.
What is the worst Bond theme that you still like? Because
Man with a Golden Gun.
I quite like the Chris Cornell one.
Oh,
Casino Royale, You Know My Name.
Yeah, no, sorry, you're right.
For that is one of my favourites. I love that song. I remember when we were sat in the cinema in Leicester Square for Casino Royale. I went with my then boss and his then fiance and my girlfriend. I don't know if she was my fiance at that stage. Actually, no, I think she was still girlfriend. No, she was probably anyway. Whatever. I'm married to her now. And we were wearing tuxes and everything because Taylor's, right? And that song came on after that brilliant opening sequence, and I was like, yeah, this is a new Bond. Like, we know what this guy's about. And the song it was just the perfect song for a new era Bond that was more hard-hitting and visceral, and I thought it was great. And God rest Chris Cornell's soul taken from us far too early. So yeah, I don't like All Time High.
By Rita Coolidge.
Yeah, or maybe that one's okay. I need to look up. Do you know what we're going to do? We're going to do a Bond theme songs episode.
Right. Well, call me back for that one.
Yes. All right. Let's do that. We'll get that scheduled in for some time over the summer. So let's go to ratings now and wrap this up.
Just before we do,
yes,
stunning 1969 Aston Martin DBS.
Oh,
lovely,
yeah, cars. Well done.
Lovely. Also, 1969 Mercury Cougar, which is a Ford badge, and that DBS was the last one that was developed under David Brown's ownership, which is where you get the DB from. And the guy that designed it, a guy called William Towns, also designed the Reliant or the Scimitar Sabre, which Princess Anne drove. As you have to say whenever you mention Scimitar, that Princess Anne drove one. So yeah, I think it's stunning. I wish they'd spent more time with the car, but it's one of my favourite Bond cars. I love the four-seater.
There's
Astons.
a successful Australian businessman who's owned that car since 1978. Still in his possession now.
Oh,
Must
wow.
be worth a fortune.
So
Yes.
So I looked up that
Advantage,
DBS
isn't
on Auto Trader, and I can't find one for less than 200 grand.
No, and I love all of the DB5's nice. Obviously, it's a classic Bond car, but the bigger Astons I prefer. So this one, Timothy Dalton's in Living Daylight, I love, and then of course Daniel Craig drives it again in the last one. So yeah, I love those Astons, and that DBS is stunning.
This is my favourite Bond car to date because of its practicality, because I could just see myself being able to get the Tesco shop in the back of it. Whereas with the DB5, I do love that, but not very practical. That's more like a sort of weekend sort of run around. But you can't get anything in it.
For me, the reveal of the DB5, the 1965 DB5 in Skyfall, when he opens the garage up to use to drive to Scotland, is such a wonderful way of re-showing that vehicle.
I agree. Part of the reason I like Skyfall is those links and hints. Yeah, and how the radio is the same design as they used in Goldfinger and stuff like that. I absolutely love Skyfall for that. But yeah, I love that DBS.
They actually painted an extra line on the roof of it to represent the exit hatch for the ejector seat as well, which is so cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
Phil, did you have any notes on the cars?
Well, I wanted to, but as I say, I felt like we were too far away from them. I wanted to kind of look into them a little bit more. I like the look of it. I had to look really closely to realise that it was an Aston Martin that he was driving, which was a shame. I would have liked to have seen those a little bit closer. Looking back, I think the only way I would actually get to see a car like that now is if I go off to Joe Macari's showroom in Wandsworth, and I could have a real close look at them then. But other than that, it was a bit too far away.
A good DB5 in today's market will cost you somewhere around $650,000. One of the DB5s using Goldfinger sold in the UK for £2.9 million in auction 2010.
Yeah.
2.9 million.
Yeah.
There you go.
There's some nice vantages on Auto Trader at the moment for $500,000. And there's a Le Mans on there as well, which is newer than James Bond. That'd be Pierce Brosnan Bond by then, because it's sort of mid-90s. But yeah, they're 600 horsepower and weigh about the same as a bus.
Didn't the Pierce Brosnan era move into BMW though for a while?
Yeah, BMWs, which is why he wasn't driving an Aston Martin Le Mans L600.
I had the GoldenEye, the BMW Z3 as my Windows 311 or Windows 95 screensaver.
quite possibly the worst.
Hairdresser car.
The Z3 is quite possibly the worst car James Bond has ever driven, including the Renault
The
11.
best thing that could happen to it is have those razor blade saw things cut it in half, to be honest.
Yes.
No, that was the Z4.
Was it Z4?
I think. Oh no, maybe it was the Z3 actually. No, it was the
I'll
Z4.
have to get a quick blue rinse put in whilst he's in his car.
Yeah. The single ski that Lazenby went down the mountain on in this film is better than driving a Z3.
Okay, can we stop hating on BMW, please? Okay.
I like BMW, but not the Z3.
I like the Z3. I almost got a new Z4 recently, but anyway, I got a Mini, and I love my JCW, by the way, it's awesome. So, ratings and reviews. I am going to get an Aston Martin one day. It's on my goal list, but I'm probably going to end up, because of money, getting like a 2004, 2005 DB.
You're going to get a defib unit to put in the glove compartment as well, yeah? Okay.
Yes, definitely. Obviously. By that time, I'll need one, yeah. But I mean, you can pick them up for like 18 grand or something. So, you know, you find a sweet spot and then you hold on to a good example, and then it might be worth more one day, or not, because apparently we're all going to be driving electric cars at some point. So, ratings and reviews. We are 6 films in. How does this stack up? I'm still going to ask Richard, even though we know what the answer is going to be. But let's go to Phil first of all. So, Phil, how did this compare to the previous 5? Where do you rate it out of the 6, and what's your rating out of 10?
I would give this a solid 8. This was certainly better than You Only Live Twice. I like the fact that we got out of that industrial element that we were in with You Only Live Twice, and we got back to being in Portugal with the fantastic views and the long shots. You know, there were some elements of the plot that were, you know, left a sort of a sour taste in my mouth, but for the most part, I actually found it really enjoyable. I liked the sequences, particularly with the bobsleigh and the avalanche, which is fantastic. And he had a bit of depth, even though he wasn't a brilliant actor. He did have a little bit of depth as Bond. So from that, I would say it was a fair effort, and I would give it a solid 8.
John?
Well, I would give it probably an 8 as well, but I'm going to give it an extra point, 9, just because Diane Regg's in the film.
and she's so sexy.
She's so sexy. I need a time machine right now. Oh, God.
Rich, I can't. I don't think there's anything more to say there. Rich?
No, it's.
You're allowed to give it a 10.
The only thing is,
give it a 10.
No, I'm going to give it a 9 because it's missing a fight on a train. And if it's going to be a Bond film, it needs a fight on a train. They need to shove somebody out of a window over the Alps. But other than that, it's the perfect Bond film. It's the most important Bond film because he gets married, and that influences loads. There's lines in later films saying, "Oh, you know, he was married one day." Think in living daylights. When is it? Yeah, it's when he's at Leitner's. No, License to Kill. When he's at Leitner's wedding, they talk about him being married. It's got an Aston. It's got Blofeld in it. It's got stunning cinematography. It's got a stunning soundtrack. It's got Diana Rigg in it. And Diana Rigg brings the whole film up a good 6 points. But yeah, it is my favourite Bond. Out of the 6 that you've got watched so far, From Russia with Love comes a very close second. I'm a big fan of that. And if you are rating Bond films, this is a solid 9.5 out of 10. It's almost perfect. Just needs a fight on a train.
So, Rich is probably going to kill me when I say this, but I did think long and hard about it, and then I did my little post-it notes, and I moved all my Bond films that I've seen so far around. And so I had On Her Majesty's Secret Service at about 6.5, and the reason why is because it did lose my interest about halfway through.
I did note that when you messaged us about it, actually.
Because I was just like, well, because you knew, because I told the other guys on our Discord for Play Paul's Turn that I was starting to watch it, and about an hour later I was like, I'm going to watch the end of season Stranger Things instead, and then I'll come back to this later. But it did lose my interest, and that's always a bad sign, but that's just me, right?
You said 45 minutes left and I'm losing the will to live, actually, is your comment. So that might be a bit harsh. I'm sorry, Rich. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
Oh.
John, I still love you, John. But I will kill you for that. Is that what I wrote? Oh my god. But I ratchet that up to a 7.5 for the ending, and Diana Rigg, who was also part of the ending. But the ending had such a big impact on me, and I sat there with a tear in my eye.
Yeah, it's the only Bond film that will make
Well, apart
you
from
cry.
No Time to Die.
Well, I cried at the end of No Time
Quantum
to
of
Die as
Solace.
Vesper.
I cried about Quantum of Solace because
Oh, it's so bad, you mean?
So god awful, yeah.
Well, it's not that bad. If you watch it together, like back to back with Casino Royale as a two-hander, it's not that bad. Considering they didn't have a script and they started filming, I thought they did a good job. We will talk about that in about 2 years' time.
Yeah.
So I ratchet it up to 7.5, and it's kind of sits joint fifth with Thunderball for me, because as we know, Thunderball had that massive underwater sequence that I lost interest with as well. But that's you absolutely love it, Rich. It's your favourite Bond film ever. I'm sort of a little bit. I think as the series progresses, I'm confident it's going to hold itself up there in maybe my top 10 or 12. Definitely in the top half. I don't think it's going to sink lower. But yeah.
You've got all the Pierce Brosnan films to come. So that'll help get
exactly. So
Invisible
that'll
cars
help
and snowboarding on a wave.
Invisible car, oh god, all that nonsense. Yeah, exactly. Tell me about it. That is probably the worst Bond film ever. So it's joint fifth with Thunderball, and then I've got From Russia with Love is my favourite. Then You Only Live Twice, which I was quite shocked at, but I really enjoyed You Only Live Twice. We talked about that last time, didn't we, John? Goldfinger's my number 3. Then I've got Dr. No, and then Thunderball and On Her Majesty's Secret Service are kind of sitting about level with each other, and their position changes depending on my mood. If I think about the soundtrack, though, then this one goes above Thunderball for sure. But anyway, there we go. That's what we love about movies. We're all different, and we all react to things differently, and we experience things in a different way. It was good. Lazenby was decent. Diana Rigg was so hot. So sexy. Thank you, guys, for joining me this evening. Phil, I'm so sorry we haven't seen you for half the episodes because you got some technical issues, but are you okay there?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So it's sorry about that, guys.
No, that's okay. Are you looking forward to Diamonds Are Forever? Have you seen it already? Because you thought it was the second Bond film.
I did see Diamonds Are Forever, and I've got to be honest, I'm not looking forward to doing the podcast on it because I really was not happy with this film.
Oh, I have forgotten it.
Okay, let's hold... spoiler alert. Let's hold that one there. I actually want... I'll tell you one thing this film did do. I can't wait for Diamonds Are Forever now. Which means I could be in for a big disappointment.
Have you seen it?
But it does all... I've never seen it.
Oh, my God.
What is wrong with you? What? I told you. It's not a secret. My mum stuck me in front of the Roger Moore films when I was a toddler, so I don't remember anything about them apart from some of the action set pieces. And then the Timothy Dalton ones passed me by because I was in primary school and I wasn't, whatever. And then Pierce Brosnan, I'm 18 years old, GoldenEye comes out, and GoldenEye was absolutely freaking brilliant. It's one of the best Bond films. Definitely in the top 10. And top 5 even. Maybe top 7. I don't know. But it's brilliant. GoldenEye is brilliant. And then Brosnan was my proper Bond. And then Daniel Craig. And then Roger
Yes,
Moore, I have an affection for, because
But
Charles.
there's been a multitude of bank holidays since then when you can guarantee that on British TV, especially now we have digital and there's lots of channels, there will be a Bond film on somewhere on British TV on a bank holiday Monday.
Rich, I tailor for you, and I know you're very happy because I keep listening to that podcast episode and reading your text messages. But one thing I can't do is reinsert your eyes into your head. Can you please take something to calm down? And I'm so sorry that I'm stressing you out. But, you know, I'm very aware of how precious little time we have on this earth. And so that's why... Anyway,
So you watch Star Wars instead of James Bond.
do you know why the Bondathon exists? It's not to entertain the people at home. It is purely my own... It is just to get myself watching all of these films in order.
Yeah.
There you go. That's it. And speaking of the Bondathon, we will be back for Diamonds Are Forever. Rich, what's the next? You want one of the Roger Moore ones next, don't you? Don't you? Do you?
Not especially. I'm not a massive fan of Roger Moore. I am a big fan of Timothy Dalton, though.
Okay, so
Either of
you'll be
them.
back when we get there.
Yeah, and music. If we're doing the themes, let's do the themes.
Okay, fine. All right, so we'll try and do that one in and amongst the Roger Moore ones. Thank you so much. You've just started a new Instagram, haven't you? Called what? Richard?
Rich Gore Clothing, I think.
That's the one. Yeah.
Just for the lack of something better to call it. And it's really just it's an advertising offshoot for you and my bikes.
Brilliant, thank you. It's a marketing spin-off. Thank you so much for joining us, Rich. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you in London soon.
Yes,
John,
indeed.
where can people find you online, John?
I am at John P. R. Evans on Twitter, which is mostly my irrelevant nonsense about games and films. And I'm not going to tell you about my Instagram because I very rarely use it. It's just a way of showing photographs to my family or anything else.
Yeah, you don't have to share your Instagram if you don't want to.
I'm around.
Would you also like to do a quick little
Oh, yes.
trailer for our, for our podcast?
We have the Play Pause Turn podcast as well, which we have an upcoming episode about Obi-Wan Kenobi, the TV series. So, Rich, if you want to bone up on your Star
Wars.
It's
very spicy.
It's quite spicy.
It's a very spicy episode.
Which I've got to get out pretty soon as well. But, we try and talk about books, films and TV, whichever is the most relevant at the time. You don't have to listen to them in any order at all.
Yes, much like this podcast, you don't need to listen to in order at all. Phil, where can we find you in the multiverse?
You can find me on LinkedIn, just Philip Rahman. You can also find me on Instagram, I think, which is PRahman187. And it's a mixture of family stuff with a little bit of poker in between. I am doing an event beginning of September, actually. I'm in quite a big tournament there. And I'll be sending updates for all those that are interested in poker as well.
Awesome. And thank you all so much once again for joining us. We love making these 007 themed, double OO 7 themed episodes.
Ooh, 7.
Ooh. And I love I think we're going to rename this podcast. And I love getting your feedback after each one. Tailoring Talk is on Instagram at Tailoring Talk Podcast. You can support the show by buying us a coffee at www.buymeacoffee.com/Roberto Revilla. And you can also help us out by reviewing us and giving a rating if your podcast listening vessel allows it. We will be back next month to review Diamonds Are Forever. Meantime, take care, and we'll see you on the next episode of Tailoring Talk. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers, bye. Everybody.